Let's roll. Okay,
Great.
this meeting is being recorded. Welcome to our webinar of the Catholic Academy of Communications Professionals, and also welcome to our friends in the Catholic Press Association. We're here today with Matt Meeks, who's going to be talking about strategic use of websites and the social media. My name is Brian Finnerty. I'm Vice President of the Catholic Academy and also U.S. Communications Director of Opus Dei. Matt is currently Chief Digital Officer for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. He leads a team that's done an extraordinary job in expanding the communications reach of the diocese. I understand it's gone from reaching about 60,000 people a week or something like that through its media efforts to reaching 3 to 7 million people per week via its digital, social, and mobile properties. And I've also understand that Matt has been an advisor to Hollywood studios, publishers, technology startups, celebrities, and nation states. I have to find out which nations at some point. Or what that means. What's that? Okay. All right, very good. So a couple of little points of instructions. So Matt will be talking for about 15 or 20 minutes. And then throughout the time, if you want to submit questions, at the bottom of the screen, there's a chat button that you can click on that, and then that will be seen by everybody, including me, and I'll read that off to Matt, and either immediately or at some particular point during this presentation or when we open up for questions. And so then at the end of the 15 to 20 minutes, we'll be dedicating ourselves to Q&A. So Matt, with that, thank you very much for being that, and it's all yours.
Thank you, Brian. So it's great to be in touch with all of you. I'm excited to be talking to you, and kind of give you an overview of the project we've been embarking on here in LA for the last 3.5 years. The kind of plan of what I'll be talking about is definitely getting into some of these tactical things, how we're using websites, how we're using social. But from a macro level, it's really how have we used these communications tools to drive organizational change within the archdiocesan environment in order to kind of get everybody working on the same page, working towards the same goals, and marching together. So I put a presentation together that I'll share here that kind of walks you through this. Let me just pull it up. Okay. And I'll do my best to keep it to 15 minutes. Let's see. Slideshow, play from start. Great. First, roughly 3.5 years ago, I started in this position. I was working at a media agency. So we did the math behind the advertising for major brands. So what frequency should we run ads on what locations? And I'd been meeting with Archbishop Gomez fairly regularly, kind of in my vocational discernment process. And every other meeting was me telling him, the church needs to be utilizing these things I'm learning. And he and David Scott gave me a call about 4 years ago and said, it wasn't Matt, you should enter seminary. It was Matt, come and work for me and let's figure out everything you've been talking about. So 3.5 years ago, I started at the Archdiocese as the first digital employee. We've grown to a team of 13 now, and we've largely been able to do that by starting by supporting the revenue generating functions of the Archdiocese, proving our value, and then expanding from there. We've entrusted our work to Juan Diego because he was a deliverer of a particular media message and image of Our Lady, and he didn't speak the language. And I often feel like in technology, we don't speak the new languages, and we're in over our heads. So we've entrusted what we're doing to him. So just to jump into it here, the mandate that we've been given from Archbishop Gomez is to transform the way the global church communicates to her people, starting in Los Angeles. So using LA as kind of a test market that anybody can learn from, and that's why I'm excited to be talking to you today. In LA, we have 5 million Catholics. Mass on any given Sunday is said in over 40 different languages. and it's 70% Latino. So that gives you an idea of kind of the makeup of our archdiocese. When I started, I'm involved with a separate organization that had done a study of kind of the level of faith involvement among Catholics. So this is one of the data points I was looking at. But you can see here that about half of us are what would be considered cultural Catholics, a little less than a quarter or once a month Catholics. And then I think the greatest opportunity for evangelization is in those once a month Catholics, and the greatest opportunity to grow advocates and disciples is within the Sunday Mass, daily Mass goers. So we looked at that, and then we did a study internally here, and I think this is probably indicative of most archdioceses, but we found that there was very little coordination between departments and parishes and schools. We were working with limited funds. There was lack of an overarching strategic focus, and what I mean by that is, while the bishop would set, a focus, each department was operating as its own kind of self-functioning entity. We had lack of job specialization. There was all of these confusing brands out there and ecclesial terminology that people didn't understand, and the communications platforms weren't coordinated. So that was kind of what we saw and said we have to solve. I also looked at a tool that we use called the marketing funnel. So this tool you see on the right is something we used in advertising. And basically what it is for any major purchase, people go through the same steps on that path to purchase. So Kia Motors used to be a client of mine, so I'll use cars. So people go from awareness of, the different vehicle models that are out there, to considering which model they would like to purchase, to an intent to test drive, to a purchase. And then if everything that they've learned in their research phase is honest, they become an advocate for the car that they purchased. And the message at each of those stages is different. So in the awareness phase, it's the Super Bowl or big sporting event ad. Doesn't tell you anything about the car. It plays against, your emotions. And its goal is really just to make you aware. The consideration ad is best in class gas mileage, government safety rating, all of the features. The intent ad is this Saturday, 0% APR, get on the lot. We've got our Labor Day clearance sale. And then your advocate kind of ads are the things you get in your email after you've purchased to share information about your car with friends. So when I looked at this, and I kind of adapted that and created the evangelization funnel, which you see here on the slide, and kind of held the church in our messaging, at least here in LA, to this up against this funnel. And what I found was we're largely not present in the awareness stage. We've got 2,000 years of history and data and information. And so in the consideration and intent phase, we're doing a pretty good job. But in awareness, the emotional kind of outreach that brings people in, we were missing. And then there was no coordinated effort to activate our advocates. So the lay people who are in parishes, praying for God to give them something to do, the church wasn't giving them things to do. So I knew I had to figure out who those advocates were, and we had to create materials that could lift us up into the awareness phase. And what that really meant for us was to stop thinking like an administrator, I guess, go beyond thinking like an administrator by, function of who we are as an archdiocese. We're an administrator of the church in a particular region, but to begin thinking like a publisher, a teller of stories that could reach people in the awareness phase, and then also could be stories that those advocates could share, so that they could reach people and bring them into the system. And what that meant for us was kind of creating a team that would serve the departments, the parishes, and the schools, and be kind of a central resource. And in being a central resource, bring people together to align communication, to align our stories, and begin distributing information that could serve the greater archdiocese. And that started with us kind of me telling the Archbishop, I'm one person and this is a really difficult task. So we need to recruit a team, and then get that team kind of serving the organization. And in order to do that, we started small. I had a team of 3 to begin with. and we served our annual appeal and our cemeteries department and various things where we could show that our efforts were generating revenue, and then that allowed us to grow to 13 people. And what we've created with these 13 people is basically an agency within an archdiocese, free of charge, at this, underwritten by the archdiocese, at the service of our parishes, schools, and departments. And this is just a list of the services we provide. So from social media to websites to apps to all of these various different things, with the goal of helping these departments think through what is their strategy, why are you coming to us, and what are your goals, figuring out the content that helps them accomplish those goals, the audiences they need to reach, and then measuring what we're doing. As far as I know, right now, we're the only archdiocese, and you all could tell me wrong, that has a digital media analytics kind of operation. So we have a full-time analyst who's measuring everything we're doing and reporting that back so that we can keep improving. And the goal for us is to facilitate a personal encounter with Christ through our parishes in the sacraments, through one another, through our events, ultimately while furthering the Archbishop's priorities in support of a properly functioning organization. So this is a tool I created, or just a little graph I created, that was if the Catholic life was moving properly from conception to the cross, these are the touch points. And so how can we figure out as communicators that we can work with those touch points to make sure that they're moving people along the path? And this is our team. David Scott's our Vice Chancellor of Communications. I'm sure a number of you know him. And then myself, and then Carolina Guevara is our Chief Communications Officer. She's the institutional knowledge who has helped me not make too many political blunders in my efforts to create this team and help things get moving. She's been with the Archdiocese for about 10 years and worked with the mayor's office before that. Andy is our head of government relations. We brought JD Long Garcia from the Catholic Sun over to help us with the kind of relaunch and rebrand of our newspaper. And Liz came to us from Edelman, PR agency, and she's worked on major video game brands and with Nestle, and brought a lot of experience. We have 2 project managers, and I'm just walking you through the team really quick because I think it just gives value to what we've kind of put together. But 2 project managers. Colleen came to us as a costume designer for Boardwalk Empire, and sold us on the fact that she was able to manage all of these different people, and it was very similar to what we needed in terms of managing web builds. So and then we've got 2 social media community managers who are kind of engaged on all of our social accounts, 2 videographers and photographers, one of which, Will, has a kind of storied Hollywood background and decided to put all of his talents to work for the church. Tom is our very goofy web developer here on the left, and then Conan is one of our other web developers. Andrew is in charge of our design and identity and branding, and he has a side passion of putting his face into famous art through Photoshop. And Veronica does events. Adrian oversees media relations. Pat's our analyst, and then Casey does our newsletters and copy editing. So that's the kind of scope of the communications operation. And some of the things we've worked on, we created a central media portal. That was one of the first things we did. We saw that the church was being covered in LA, largely in light of some of its historical mistakes that have happened here. And that was a filter that we couldn't break through in the media. And so rather than issuing press releases, we just decided to tell our story first, the way that we believe that story should be told. So the media portal is a place where we write those stories, and then include all of the media assets that media need to download. So before they get a press release, they're reading the story from our perspective. And we've seen that over time change the coverage of the church here in LA. As a team, we, to help you understand, everything our team does is in service of the Archdiocese. It's not like a command and control. We're centralizing things. It's that we're providing a service, and in provision of that service, we're bringing people together. So one of those services is that we're helping all of the departments with their social media. So what we've said to them is, you guys can still update your social media, have logins, post whatever you want, but let us add the background content. Let us help put an editorial calendar together for you. Let us create content for you and manage that and get it out so that it's not entirely reliant on you to do this. So this is just some of the pages that we manage on Twitter, for example. We have roughly 40 social media accounts that we're managing. And that's one of the ways that we've been able to expand our reach so quickly. So through those 40 social media accounts, you know, the reach is anywhere from 3 to 7 million people per week. And what we do is this enables cross promotion. You know, people come into the church for various reasons. Someone might be coming in because they care about our you know, pro-life initiatives, or because they care about praying for priests, or you name it. And what we do is really keep about 80% of each of those profiles focused on what those profiles are doing. So vocations is 80% vocations related, 20% cross-promoting the other activities taking place in the Archdiocese. So that we think of social media like a network, not as these individual profiles, and then our team programs that network. One of the problems we found is that there's no real centralized email database in LA. Each department had their own emails, and people were reticent to share those. So through all of the websites we've been creating, we have a subscribe button that asks people what they care about. So you can see, you know, do you care about Archbishop Gomez, Catholic Charities, news and events, marriage and family life? They select that and submit that. That goes into a central email database that we can use for both email newsletters as well as utilize for Facebook ad targeting or things like that. The emails have been very valuable for us. We knew that our team couldn't serve all of our parishes with the same level of service that we provide to the departments in the building. But we really wanted to break down this mentality from the priests that, you know, the Archdiocese is downtown and we're just the tax collectors who call them when we need money and otherwise don't support them. So we had to find one service that we could provide the parishes. And we found in LA, we have 60 parishes without websites. 100 of them have lost their logins of the 300 parishes. So in total, more than half of our parishes have no forward-facing digital presence. So we've created and I'll just flip over here to, we've created a tool called parishconnect.org that allows those parishes, we've started with the ones without websites, to log in, kind of, you know, give us their information, submit some basic information, and it'll automatically generate a parish website for them. So I'll pull up one of those websites for you to see. And they're very simple, but for us, it's better than, you see here, see this one. Oh, I pulled up sorry, my, it's being blocked here. Here we go. Nope, that's not the one. Oh, let me see. I think it's with an S, actually. I'm sorry, guys. There we go. So this is one of our first, and this is just in kind of a beta version, but one of our goals was to connect what's happening at the parish with the Archdiocese. So you can see that there's a top navigation bar here that highlights the Archbishop, our newspaper, our schools, our cemetery, and any upcoming event that we want our parishes to be aware of. So that cycles in and out. So, and then it's Mass times and confession times are front and center. We're distributing our news from the Angelus out to these parish sites. So basically the goal was, you know, to provide a service to these parishes that didn't really know what to do when it came to the web, and use that as an opportunity for us to also distribute the information of the Archdiocese. Let me go back in here to the slideshow. Nope. Here we go. Okay, great. And this is just the example of that top bar that we've created. So every website, even this is a line of code that if a parish doesn't want us to help them with their website, that's totally fine. Or if a department doesn't need our assistance, we just give them this top bar then and say, would you mind, inserting this code into your site, and we can help you with that, so that anybody who comes through your parish is aware of what is happening in the larger archdiocese. So that's one simple thing that we've done. We've kind of relaunched and rebranded our newspaper. You all might remember a few years ago, it was called The Tidings. It's now called The Angelus. We did some studies to see if the Tidings brand could be saved, or if it had a particular kind of just viewpoint that would be hard for us to transition. So we, and that resulted in the fact that we believed we needed a new name. So we named it The Angelus. We're the city of Our Lady of the Angels. The Angelus is the prayer between, Our Lady and the angel Gabriel. And then the first mission that Junipero Serra built in LA was the San Gabriel mission. So the logo is that mission. And this is, I'll go really quick here to the Angelus right here online. We saw basically we had a news operation of about 4 full-time staff writers plus JD, and we knew we didn't have the bandwidth to generate round-the-clock content. So what we did was we built a back-end connection to Catholic News Agency so that we could pull all of their articles in. JD could edit those articles, change the lead, change the headline, change the photo, and then we could publish that out to the Angelus and basically have enough content to support a full service news operation. So if you look at the Angelus, local Catholic LA, California, that's largely written by our writers, but US and world social issues, that's largely pumped in from Catholic News Agency. And you can see here on the back end, I'll log you in. We get up-to-date analytics for our editor. If you come into articles and click CNA, you can see all the CNA articles, check which ones you want, and then go in and edit those and then pull them into the system. So, and we're open to other news organizations. CNA was just very easy for us to work with in doing this. But it's enabled us to have a news operation that generates a significant amount of content for the web. We've also put together the Angelus Always Forward newsletter that goes out every day. So we've got that. And I know I'm going over in time here, so I'll move kind of quickly. Let me just go through some of these here. So, and what we've really been doing is serving the departments of the Archdiocese and helping them kind of elevate what they're doing. We helped our life office come up with the concept for One Life, our LA's first ever walk for life, focused on the fullness of human life. And that's been really successful because of the emails we've collected through websites and the ability to promote events and social media. We were able to get 15,000 to attend the first year's event. We've kind of leveraged cultural opportunities to help with Catholic teaching. So we've used our cemeteries to have Dia de los Muertos events, which is big in LA. It's kind of become a party in a lot of cemeteries, and we wanted to return it back to the faith-based aspect to help educate Latinos surrounding Catholic teaching around All Souls and All Saints Day. And we've had 10,000 show up to our first Dia de los Muertos event in the cemetery. We've been working with our vocations office to grow discernment groups and creating a lot of video content on kind of paths to the priesthood and distributing that online. We're also using social listening tools. There are tools that allow us to search keywords across Twitter, and utilizing those tools, we've been able to come up with discernment related keywords and basically reach out from the office to anybody that we think might be in a discernment process, which has resulted in discernment group growth. We launched the first website for St. John's Seminary, which is basically if you go here, it's got videos on seminary life. It really brings you into the experience. It It connects people with the vocations directors of all of the seminaries that come into, or all of the archdioceses that come into our seminary. We rebranded our Department of Catholic Schools. When I started, it was called DCS, for Department of Catholic Schools, something that nobody Googled, or like nobody was looking for the Department of Catholic Schools of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. So we just call it Catholic Schools Los Angeles, Catholic Schools Santa Barbara, Catholic Schools Ventura. We wanted to align it with Google searches, and that's increased a lot of interest in our schools. We've been helping with kind of marriage and family life. That's a priority of the Archbishop. And the one story I'll say here that's really valuable is like our Office of Marriage and Family Life came to us and said, our average volunteer is over the age of 65. And the younger couples we're hearing from our Engaged Encounter retreats would like to have some younger married couples involved in the ministry to help them. And they were also worried about the longevity of their program. It's entirely volunteer run. And with older volunteers, they were concerned about recruiting new volunteers. So they came to us and said, can you create a bulletin insert to reach young people to help them volunteer for our program? And this is a good example of how our office works. And we said, we can absolutely create a bulletin insert, but I don't think it will reach young people. What's your budget? And they said, we have $300 for printing. And I said, would you be more comfortable? Would you let us put that into Facebook ads and see how that does? And they said, sure. So we targeted Catholic couples in Los Angeles who are married, who like Pope Francis, and created an ad with Pope Francis in the image. Catholic couples in Los Angeles who like, surfing, like you can get as detailed as possible. And the more detailed you get in Facebook ads, the cheaper they are. So our average cost per click on the campaign was 23 cents. And we had 60 couples sign up to volunteer within the age group of 30 to 45, which is the age group we targeted on Facebook. So that was 120 volunteers. And the office told us to stop everything we were doing because they didn't know how to handle 120 volunteers. So Facebook ads are something that right now are very inexpensive and very powerful. We've created a lot of videos. If you're helping with fundraising, I think video is key. For our priest retirement fund, the only thing we did from the previous year was create a video following a retired priest. And this video alone doubled donations. So having video and online donations is a very important thing for fundraising. And then we rebranded our cemeteries department, have been kind of focused on driving pre-sales, and then of course and then what our plans are for the future, we're looking at building kind of an ad network for the church in LA. We have the Angelus, we have parish websites, we have kind of mobile apps that reach individuals. So there's an opportunity for us to work with advertisers to actually generate revenue for the parishes if parishes on our parish web system would want that. We're looking at kind of a digital out-of-home network, putting screens up in the parishes that run our news and run our videos and help promote key events. And then we're also looking at rebranding the Archdiocese. I know other dioceses have rolled out new brands like Denver Catholic or things like that. We found that not a lot of the Catholics in LA search for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. They think in terms of their parish. So we're looking at doing that and rolling out a new archdiocesan web presence. Please don't judge our work based on the current LA Archdiocese website. It's such a massive undertaking that we've waited 3 years to tackle that one. And we're also working around an idea called Every Parish Has a Story, where our video team is just calling pastors and saying, if you could tell one story from your parish, what would that story be? We're collecting those stories and going out and shooting those and putting those out online. So that's kind of, and then what we've been doing is in our estimation working well. We've had various inquiries from different groups at the Vatican, as well as other kind of dioceses who have sent people out here to learn from us and sit amongst us. And so that's kind of what we've been up to in LA, if that helps give you an idea. And I'd love to field some of your questions here.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. So we're going to go to question and answer right now. And as I said before, at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little thing that says chat. So if you just go ahead and click on there, and then everyone will see it. I'll see it, and I'll read it to Matt, or Matt will see it. And let me toss out a couple of questions myself. So if you let's say somebody here says, "Hey, that's a great thing. I'd like to implement it in my diocese or my organization. Have some questions about it. What's the best way for them to follow up? As far as if they were to interact with you directly or someone in your organization, or you also have your own company that you do things with. What are the various venues out there for specific follow-up on specific projects?"
Yeah, if anybody, you can feel free to share my email with the group here. It's mhmeeks@gmail.com. And any questions you all have, I'd be happy to help on a more one-on-one basis. There's basically how it works is if anything that is within kind of the scope of my work time, I want to help the church through what we've been doing in LA. And the Archbishop is very open to that. So sharing our learning, sharing our data from our analyst, I'm very happy to do that with you all. If there's like a deeper dive where you would want to have me come out and visit or talk about that, then we could talk about what that might look like. And then also, so you all know, we keep an empty desk among our team for people from other dioceses, for people from our parishes, anybody who wants to sit among our team and kind of feel for what we're doing. There's an empty desk here. So if any of you find yourself in LA and that desk is open, you've got a spot among the team here to just kind of get a feel for how we do things. But again, my email is mhmeeks, MEEKS @gmail.
Let me actually just sort of type that out for everybody. Say that again, the email.
mhmeeks, MEEKS @gmail.
At mhmeeks@gmail.com.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Very good. So someone, let's see. Someone had the question for dioceses which are smaller than LA. Where should they start? Maybe let's put that general question in two categories. Let's say you're either a massive organization like the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, or you're a smaller organization, and you're thinking, okay, of all the things he's talked about, where might we start? What would you suggest?
Yeah, the first place I would start is trying to bring somebody in who has a background in digital that gets this stuff without a specific plan, because I think there are a lot of similarities between dioceses and archdioceses, but they're all also very different, and the people that they serve are different. And then what that person should do is look through, where are the communication channels we have now that we're not utilizing. For me, that was these social media profiles that weren't being effectively utilized that we could centralize. And what is it going to take for us to bring, how many people do we need to activate those channels? And the other thing I'll say too is in our model in providing a service, a lot of the departments, the first thing they want is like, oh, we need a video, whether they need it or not. But for us to open the door to converse with them, we needed a video team early. But I don't think that every archdiocese needs to be creating their own content. There's a lot of people out there generating content. So I think sometimes the thing people think is, oh, we need to hire kind of a full service person who does video and does social and can come in and run around and generate a bunch of content. And but I would say for a smaller archdiocese, you probably need somebody who thinks more strategically, like how do we connect pieces of the puzzle that aren't connected and leverage the footprint to build awareness, and then for the time being, curate all of the great content that's out there, like what we're doing for the Angelus, curating content from CNA, changing it a little. How can you curate content rather than spending a lot of time and energy creating something that's already been created somewhere else? And then just see what's working, see what's growing, and then staff as you grow. That would be my best advice.
Okay, very good. Someone has a question. Given your demographics, how have you handled approaching bilingual communications?
Yes. So everything we do has to be English and Spanish at the very least. Korean is our third largest language group, followed by Vietnamese and Tagalog. We don't do Korean as well as I would like. It's not really a mandate that everything we put out needs to be in Korean. But if you go to any of our websites, you'll find that the websites are both in English and Spanish. One thing that we found pushes people away, though, is when you force somebody, like for a Facebook post, putting in one post English and Spanish, so that and that we used to do that with the Archbishop when we started, but in that instance, a lot of the English speakers would defollow and a lot of the Spanish speakers would defollow because they didn't take the time to read down to find the part that was their language. So what we now do through social media is we double post, and there's a tool in Facebook where you can target based on language. So the Archbishop will put things out in Spanish, we'll put things out in English, but then we just target it to English or Spanish speakers. And sometimes we change the content a little bit because the community we're trying to reach is a little bit different.
So, yes, so it's not necessary to have a separate Facebook page for Spanish audiences and English. The tools will let you know to target each from within the same page.
Exactly. Yeah, not anymore. It used to be, but now Facebook allows you to do targeting for each post based on language.
Okay. How about, can you talk about every parish has a story of what you're referring to at the end? And also, it might be interesting to either about this or some other thing, approach something from more of a case study of approach. I mean, just not sort of like a high level, but here's how the thing rolled out. Here's some problems we encountered or just choices that we made.
Yeah, totally. So every parish has a story. Something that came out of that was there's one of our parishes, St. John Vianney, was the victim of arson prior to. Hang on one second. That's not me. John Vianney was the victim of a kind of arson prior to me starting at the Archdiocese. So the parish had been burned down. They were celebrating Mass in a tent. And we called the parish, not even really knowing the story. Like we'd known that this happened to one of our churches, but wasn't even, we have 300 parishes. So when the team member of mine called the priest and asked, it resulted in a whole campaign. So we learned the stories of the individual people that, had memories going back, to their grandparents in that parish. And the priest just kept talking and talking. So we sent a video crew out there, did a lot of interviews, created a fundraising video to help the parish kind of rebuild. And that all went very well. And it was a great story for us to capture, and we got a lot of views. And so that was something where we were just looking for stories, and it resulted in an entire campaign. Another one, like sometimes we don't use our stories until later. If you go to our mission, I'll type it into the chat, and you can see ourmissionla.org is the site for our annual appeal. And I feel like every year, even in the last 3 years, we struggle to find stories to help with the fundraising effort there. And we had gotten this story a year and a half ago when we had called St. Michael's, which is one of our parishes in South LA, and learned about a couple that travels from Manhattan Beach to South LA to teach at the school as volunteers. One of the gentlemen is a rocket scientist, the other is a lawyer. And so for our annual appeal this year, we decided to profile that couple and tell the story of how, the diocese, people across the diocese pitch in and help each other. And we should do that both in our time and financially. And so far that's been very successful. We run into problems, I guess from a case study standpoint. It's the hardest thing in our job, I think, is satisfying everybody. When we have a lot of departments, a lot of people complain more than they express their gratitude and excitement. And we have to push through that. So for this year's campaign, it was a story about a parish school. Even though the annual appeal, a lot of the funds go towards the parish proper for keeping the lights on in parishes, and so the priests were very upset that we were highlighting a school, and that we didn't highlight the parish as much. And so we just kind of had to send out talking points, explain the story to them, show that it's working, and kind of anticipate that, knowing that we needed the priests as advocates, and they also it could be a potential pitfall that the bulk of the video focuses on a school, not a parish. And that was something we learned from a previous year's campaign where we focused on the school more. But so far it's been very successful, and I think the priests are happy. It's interesting for us, all of our campaigns are so different, because what happens is a department comes to us telling us they think they need something. And sometimes they're right on, but a lot of the times it's very different. So each campaign we're working on is really kind of custom to the people that come to us.
Okay. Someone says, I work for the Midwest Jesuits. We serve as the hub for 60 plus ministries in our province. Could you talk about the process for collaborating and empowering some of the organizations within the Archdiocese? For example, a specific parish or pro-life group that may not have the acumen that you guys have?
Yeah, so like how we've been building, kind of like, is the question how we're building like this kind of collaboration among these groups in order to get kind of a groundswell going so that we can push things through. I think the best example is probably what we did for One Life. Before we had web developers on staff, we worked with a company with a gentleman who runs an organization called Options United, which basically connects crisis pregnancy centers, so that if women call his number, his hotline, in a crisis situation, he'll direct them to a place that's approved nearby that they can go. And we found him, and he was I think the first thing I would say is find the people who are already centralizing efforts. They exist. Find them and figure out how to work with them. And so from a pro-life standpoint, here in LA, there's all these different groups that all have their own ideas, and nobody talks to anybody, but Thomas was the one that had already started to build integration. So we worked with him, and it worked on an app called, I can't even remember the name of the app, but basically it was an app that did what he was doing through technology. So if you have a crisis pregnancy, the app will help you find exactly a pregnancy center that can support the questions that you have, and then also alert the people in advance to start praying, and alert anybody who's interested in pro-life that there's somebody in that type of a situation and they can pray. So we then sent it to pro-life prayer groups. They all got the app. They all downloaded it and started praying together, and that became the groundswell that made 15,000 people show up for One Life possible. Without that connectivity of that app and us finding that person, Thomas, who had already started to build connections, I don't think we would have had 15,000 people show up to our first Walk for Life. And a lot of it's just like, in the case of you being with the Midwest Jesuits, and it's doing the grunt work of even hiring an intern, or we've had interns make calls to priests before we knew that the website was the thing we needed to provide the parishes. We called parishes, and I had interns calling parishes saying like, hey, we're this new department at the Archdiocese. Here are the things we do. Do you have any needs at the parish that we could connect with? We're just kind of doing a study to find out how we can better serve the parishes. And that resulted in us finding this window of opportunity, which was the absence of parish websites, which for us is the first step in a much more integrated relationship with all of these parishes that are on our system.
Okay, good. There's another question about what do you do to prioritize multilingual content? I mean, you have everything in English and Spanish, but you can't do that for all the other languages. So how do you decide what you are going to do? How about Google Auto Translate? how helpful have you found that? What do you do for posting captions on other videos and so on?
Yeah. Well, I mean, English and Spanish is easy to prioritize just because of the numbers. So we know that the bulk of the people in our archdiocese have fluency in either English or Spanish. The Google Translate kind of option that we've put on some of our websites is really not for English or Spanish. That's for Korean and those that we were not as sophisticated in. And we found that works. Of course, there's problems with these auto translation tools, but they're getting better and better. So when it comes to just making sure that the message is communicated within those language groups, that to me is the best way for us to make sure that we're at least providing websites that can be translated to Korean. When it comes to video, we will do on major campaigns like Together in Mission. When you go to that website, you'll see we have parish resources, and then we have parish resources in both Spanish and English. And then the videos we do subtitled in both languages. So that, because we have parishes that are Spanish only parishes. And so we need to make sure that everything we produce is in both English and Spanish. And for big campaigns like that, we'll also do an English story and a Spanish story often. This year we didn't do that for Together in Mission. I think the one thing we try to stay away from is dubbing, creating something English first, dubbing it into Spanish, and then saying we've satisfied our outreach to the Spanish-speaking community. I think that makes them feel like it wasn't created for them, and we're treating them as kind of second class or secondary to the content we've created. So for key initiatives, for things like One Life, big events that we do, we try to create content that's custom for that audience as well as for the English-speaking audience. So we might actually create two different pieces of content. And I think on big initiatives, that's important. And especially when the Archbishop is wanting to communicate something, he speaks very differently in Spanish than he does in English. So we'll shoot him twice rather than subtitle him and have, two videos that we target to the different language groups.
So is that the general policy for your videos in both English and Spanish? You'll have a custom version for both English and Spanish for just about all of them, or selectively?
Selectively on big initiatives. Even our team, and it's a big team, doesn't have the bandwidth to do everything, to do multiple videos for every language group. So a lot of times we'll do something in English, subtitle it in Spanish, or do something in Spanish and subtitle it in English and leave it at that. But on big initiatives, we shoot too, just because of the importance of making sure that people feel like you're speaking directly to them.
Okay, good. Someone asked the interesting question of what was the investment, even just for the initial research, for changing the direction that the Archdiocese was going in?
What was the investment in the
research? Costs. How much money
I don't know if I'm allowed to share that or not. We did an organizational review. The Archbishop had consultants come in and do an audit that David Scott and myself and Caroline, our head of media relations, worked on with that team. It was expensive. And then we didn't grow the team, beyond that core group for about 6 months, based on what we learned from the organizational audit, and then kind of doing a lot of the internal research. A lot of the time cost of the digital research was on me. So for those first 6 months, I was researching all of the social media profiles that existed in the Archdiocese and looking at all of our different websites and trying to get a handle on what our footprint was. And then the cost of the team has been, counteracted with the fact that we're bringing revenue into the Archdiocese to balance out our growth.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So you said you actually showed that was making a substantial payback before you're expanding the size of the team?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of I became friends with our CFO very quickly because I knew that what I wanted to do was going to be terrifying to him if I laid it out and just told him we needed a staff of 13. So what we did was I just talked to him about what are the key revenue generate, like our cemeteries department is one of our largest revenue generating um, uh, elements within the Archdiocese. So one of the first departments we started working with was our cemeteries department. And there were very simple changes that we made. So I guess on a case study standpoint, cemeteries would be a great case study to tell you. We had the pages for our cemeteries were buried within our Archdiocesan website. They didn't have their own website or their own pages. And then they weren't staying on top of their Yelp reviews or Google reviews. And they had a customer service issue across all of the cemeteries. So if you went into their reviews, we were looking at 1 or 2 stars and a lot of negative comments. So the first thing we did was pull them out of under our Archdiocesan website and create an independent website for our Catholic cemeteries, and then shut down or worked with the different providers out there to start changing different reviews while we were working with the CEO of the cemeteries department to kind of make changes within their customer service and the things that they were doing. And then kind of launched this whole new brand, this whole new, this idea that the Archdiocese is praying for the families of those and the people who are buried in our cemeteries, bringing back prayer for the dead, letting people feel like that they're connected to the Archdiocese and we're praying for them. That was one of our big campaigns. The people who were coming through the website, one of the first things there, would you like us to pray for you? And then that brings them into a community where they know that they're being prayed for, or their loved ones being prayed for. And that started to change the customer service. The website was changing our search. We started running Google ads to drive people to the new website. And very quickly, the cemeteries department started showing a change, an uptick in revenues, a change in things happening there to the point that our CFO was happy. And I said, I'd like to make another hire. And he said, go for it. And,
okay.
So yeah.
Okay, very good. Someone asked if we can get a copy of the PowerPoint for this. So will you be able to send it to us and we'll post it on the website for the Catholic Academy?
Sure, of course.
Okay. And I'm trying to send out, yes, so I just sent out your email to everybody.
Awesome, thank you.
And someone asked, are there other websites that you think do a particularly good job that you would recommend as good examples of doing some of these things?
Yeah, I think I think the one diocese that I think is testing things and doing interesting things that is smaller than us, but like a good medium-sized diocese or archdiocese would be Denver. So they've changed their name to, they've united their Archdiocesan website with their publication, and it's Denver Catholic. They've connected Flocknote through all of their parishes and rolled out parish websites. And there's kind of they're doing something similar on a smaller scale to what we've been trying to do. And so I've been interested and kind of been following what they've been doing. So I think they're interesting to look at. I don't know. I mean, that's probably from a archdiocesan standpoint, one that I've been keeping pace with, that I think everybody should follow and see. We've made the decision because of the unique challenges LA had. Like, I guess that's something good to tell you. We've done a lot of custom development. We have developers in-house. That's a huge expense. There are a lot of tools out there that are available to dioceses and parishes that are good, like things like Flocknote and eCatholic provides parish websites, ParishSoft. There's various groups that are doing this. We've created a custom system because we wanted it to connect to our news organization, and we needed opportunity for multiple languages. And there were things that the providers out there couldn't provide. So we've decided to build some custom things in LA. But there are inexpensive ways without you hiring your own development staff. There are already tools and services out there that can help you.
Okay, very good. Maybe, well, you touched on this a little bit, but maybe you could expand it a little bit more. What if bringing more people is not an option for people with a constrained budget? What are some things that people can do, people who are resource constrained?
Of course. Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what they're trying to do. There's so many goals and objectives that we're trying to accomplish as communications people within the church. So are we trying to change the brand within our particular diocese of how people connect with the church? Are we trying to reach more people? Are we trying to increase fundraising dollars? I mean, and each of those should be tackled, whatever your primary objective is, that needs to be tackled in its own unique way. And it doesn't necessarily mean that more staff is needed, but I don't know how to answer it without knowing what the particular challenge would be that person is trying to take on. I do think that the best thing that people can, the most powerful thing people can do right now with limited resources and limited budget, and this still sounds, I guess, I don't know, is probably Facebook ads. Like if you Google Facebook ads manager, and you think about everything that is publicly inputted into Facebook, you have the ability to target based on that. And so if you have content that you're generating and things that you're already doing, but you don't have the means to push that out or build new systems or for an inexpensive amount of money, and you have to play with the ads. Basically, the more targeted you get, the less expensive they become. Because it's an open bidding marketplace. So if nobody is bidding against your target set, it's a less expensive ad. Then you can run those and reach new people. So, but if people want to email me with their individual questions of, I'm trying to solve the problem of fundraising, and these are the resources I have, then I can probably help them think through those challenges on a one-on-one basis.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive. A story that we talked about before. When you're looking for volunteers, I think you talked about having people in Los Angeles who liked Scott Hahn.
Yeah,
they're probably cars. People looking for cars. You're competing a lot, but there are probably fewer people who say they like Scott Hahn, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, if you said I'm looking for Hispanics in LA, you're competing with Coca-Cola and Kia Motors and every major brand out there. But if you say I'm looking for Catholic couples or Catholics who are married between the ages of 30 and 45 who like Scott Hahn, and then you have a quote from Scott Hahn on an image, and that's your ad, it's highly targeted. It's a small target set, but you're going to be very likely to get clicks on that. For like, we made a video. If you go to our seminary site, it's I'll put it in here, stjohnsim.edu or .com, I think. I always mess this up. One of them is a Lutheran seminary, so don't think that we're forming priests as Lutherans here. And one of the things that if you click on "Are You Called?", we have all these videos we've made called Journeys to the Priesthood. One of them is a story of priests who surf and the seminarians who surf with these priests, and the bond that they have when they go surfing and talking about their vocation and all of that. So we targeted that video through Facebook to Catholic men between the ages of 18 and 45 who like surfing, who live in particular zip codes of Los Angeles, and that was very effective. So those are ways that you can use Facebook ads.
Okay. How about additional suggestions for social media beyond ads? What can you do to make the content more engaging?
Of course, yeah. So Facebook. So everybody understands Facebook and now Twitter. Most social media platforms, the content is controlled and distributed by an algorithm that limits the reach of your content. So, for example, if you have a brand page, the Archdiocese page, let's say if it reaches 100 people, Facebook only distributes that content to 2 to 5 people of the 100. So the average post reaches 2 to 5% of the people that are in your fan base. And they've done that. They've limited that reach for two reasons. One, they don't want people's feeds to become inundated with brand messaging. And two, they want to force brands into their advertising model. So there are tricks to get around that algorithm. And we've done that with the Archbishop. So when we started with the Archbishop's account, he had 6,000 fans. He now has over 700,000. And we haven't done any ads through his account. We didn't want to advertise for people to follow the Archbishop. So that's been entirely organic growth. And the way we do that is we largely only post 1 to 2 times a day. Like your post frequency matters. If you overpost, or if you aren't consistent, if you post one day and then 3 days later you post, and then the next day you post 5 times, and then you go another 6 days without posting, that'll hurt your rating in the algorithm. So we post 1 to 2 times a day, every single day, Saturdays and Sundays. We try to get the earliest post out in the morning. So we try to be the first kind of Catholic post of the day. So now I'm going to have all of you competing with me. So be gentle. And because if we're the first out, then we'll get shared more than others. So that's the idea. And Facebook won't limit the average person's reach on Facebook. They'll limit the organization's reach, because they know that individuals won't pay for ads, but brands will. So if we can create highly shareable content, and that content gets shared, it's that second generation in Facebook that brings all of the followers in, or increases our reach. So what we'll find is we'll put something out, and that day it won't perform very well, but then the next day it goes through the roof. And that's because we've bypassed the algorithmic kind of block, and now people are sharing it, and now the numbers are coming in. So creating content that people want to share, not just one directional content, show up to this event, do this thing, but inspiring content that touches on the passion points of the people that you're connected with. Then they'll be more likely to share it. And then if they share it, they're likely to come in. Other pitfalls in Facebook, think of each of these kind of social platforms as wanting to own the internet. So Facebook doesn't like it if you share links on Facebook that come from any of their competitors. So like if you put a YouTube video on Facebook, it won't perform very well, and it'll hurt you in the algorithm. But if you load the video directly into Facebook video, that is, Facebook likes that, and you get extra points with them. So those types of things, if you start doing that, and then looking at your numbers, seeing what's working, you can go into your Facebook Insights and see what works and what doesn't work. And over time, you'll start to get a feel for it. And you'll be able to really start improving your outreach through tools like Facebook.
You hear specifically that Facebook Live is one of the really hot things right now, yeah, that Facebook is rewarding. Any additional wisdom on that, on how you can especially take advantage of that trend?
Yeah, no, it's Facebook Live is very important, because it also, just like Facebook rewards you for staying within their system, they reward you for trying and innovating and using new things that Facebook is rolling out. So anytime Facebook puts a new thing in the system, that's going to help you in the algorithm if you jump into it. So Facebook Live is basically the ability for you to live stream in Facebook. We've done that with the Archbishop. We created some Advent videos for him where he prayed the rosary with people in Advent on Facebook, and we used Facebook Live to do that. We've done a couple Facebook Live messages and a couple homilies on it to test it. I think one thing that's easy is even if you can get time with your bishop, or time with a priest who's forward facing on behalf, a spokesman of the archdiocese or your diocese, and you can do daily prayer intentions in Facebook Live, where people can come in and connect on that. You're touching on a passion point, you're connecting, you're giving people an opportunity to engage and comment. And I think that in doing that regularly, or incorporating that into your activities, would be very helpful.
Okay, can you talk about how you do internal communications, information about parish or school changes, procedural changes from finance and human resources? Yeah,
so I don't know, the way we're doing it now, I don't know if it'll be fruitful for everyone here, because it's kind of unique. I think this is a problem we all probably struggle with. For us, the presbyterate in LA complains a lot that we never, send them anything, and we tell them to check their email because we send it all there, and then they say, well, I never check my email. So email hasn't been the best way to send out those notifications. What we did is we created an app called Clergy Connect that, and we have the luxury of being able to give priests smartphones because we have a connection with Sprint. We have basically a license to wireless spectrum from the FCC that we've been working with Sprint on utilizing, and Sprint gives us goods and services in exchange for that. So Sprint has given us phones that we can give to our priests. And we've created an app for those phones that allows us to do push notifications directly to every single priest's phone. So that's one way we do that. We're now expanding that app to business managers and to others. And then the other thing is figuring out how you can communicate value or connect on an emotional level with these people, so that they keep coming back for information. So what I mean by that is, we were just communicating boring information out to our priests. It makes sense to me that they stopped reading the emails because it was either asking them for money or telling them what they had to do, or communicating information that they largely didn't care about. And the volume that we were communicating of things that they didn't care about to things that they did care about, pretty much incentivized them to stop paying attention to what we were sending. So we created an email newsletter just for the priest that is information sharing among our priests. So it's connected to this Every Parish Has a Story idea, but Casey, who does our newsletters, once a month interviews, takes one of these stories and goes and does a deep dive at the parish. So if it's a youth ministry program that's really doing well, if it's a marriage ministry effort, if it's serving the homeless in a unique way, something that our priests are doing that are unique, and then we highlight them in a newsletter to the priest once a month. And then within that newsletter, we put all of the updates and things that they need to know. We found that to be very effective in addition to the Clergy Connect app, because the priests, one, they like knowing that their brother priests are like kind of, they're like getting their pat on the back to their brother priest. And it's also made them all want to be profiled. So they've started reaching out to us and saying, you should talk about this program or that program. And it's created an incentive where they're now actually checking that email specifically. And then we use that email to bury a lot of the information, or, to include a lot of the information that we know they're not receiving otherwise.
Do you sometimes have to push back when people say, hey, there's this specific organizational thing I want to publicize, and it's really boring, and yeah. And there's probably a certain tension of that you want to keep these constituencies happy, but you don't want to make your product boring either.
Yes, exactly. We have to push back a lot, and my team is both universally loved and hated in this building. So it's been difficult. I mean, they love that we're helping connect them and providing these services, but at the same time, people don't like hearing no. So that's been a challenge for us to figure out, how do we say no, but then find another way for us to help promote the event that they want us to promote. And it might not be in the way that they were expecting or hoping for.
Another question about Facebook Live. So if you do have a Facebook Live event, are there specific techniques that you have for getting the word out ahead of time that this is going to be a Facebook Live event at this time?
Sure. Yeah, there's lots of different ways you can do that. In the same way that you would promote any event, like you can create an actual Facebook event that you promote and create ads behind and get people to sign up and RSVP for. And then basically use that as a mechanism to promote the Facebook Live event. Anytime we do Facebook Live things with the Archbishop, we let the media know. So our media relations not every time, but for like, if it's just a homily, we won't. But one thing we did, this was a Google Hangout event where we had one school in each of our regions bring kids together and then do a Google Hangout with the Archbishop and ask the Archbishop questions over Google Hangout. And so that event we promoted to all of LA media, and had them tuning into the Hangout. So that was one way. using your social media channels just to promote it, and not like, so if the Archbishop was doing a Facebook Live, we wouldn't just use the Archbishop's account to promote it. We would send it out from vocations and from our life office and from these other offices that we're working with to promote it as well as one of those material pieces that they cross promote.
Now, the Archbishop's Facebook account, that would presumably be a fan page, not just simply a personal page. Is that right? Or explain a little bit how that works.
Yeah, of course. So, and I'm going to share my screen again here, and then I can just show it to you while I talk. We've got, let me pull it up. So this is no, that's his Instagram. This is his Facebook's. No, that's his Twitter. Here is his Facebook. Okay, so this is the Archbishop's Facebook page. It is a fan page. I don't recommend using a personal page for anybody who could get a following more than 5,000. Facebook on personal pages has a cap of 5,000 friends. So at which point they become a branded entity in the eyes of Facebook, and then they need a fan page. So we have a fan page for the Archbishop. If you come, you can see the types of things that we post. Again, like comments on the daily gospel. We've really got a system down where we're able, like, saying we're posting twice a day from the Archbishop. I'm sure many of you think like, oh my gosh, my bishop does not have time to do 2 Facebook posts a day or review 2 posts. And so basically how we figured out managing this is the Archbishop sends us his priorities. These are the things I want to talk about over the next couple weeks. And then we create the post calendar. And a lot of this we pull from his previous writings. So we're going through homilies he's written before. We're going through his books. We're going through various things and pulling quotes out. And then we send that to the Archbishop, and he says thumbs up, or he says, I wouldn't say it that way. I want to say something different. And then he's editing what we're giving him. And then we publish it and load it up and go. And that seems to work very well for him. I imagine it'd be a good way for you to work with your bishops. But you can see here too, an example of, here's a post in English, here's a post in Spanish. The Spanish one is targeted to Spanish speakers. You can see in the comments that they're coming in Spanish. And so on his page, you can see that we're doing bilingual content, but in the feeds of people who follow him, only English speakers will see his English post and only Spanish speakers will see his Spanish post. And then we also have an Instagram or a Twitter for the Archbishop, which is just quick little quotes, inspirations, and thoughts. Again, largely pulled from his writings, unless there's something in the news that he emails us about and wants to talk about. And then we have his Instagram account too, which we started largely to reach the younger people and started promoting it through our high schools. And it's kind of the behind the scenes of the life of Archbishop Gomez. And like sneak peeks and little things that you wouldn't see otherwise. So here's a picture of him from his first communion, and things like that we put through the Instagram.
Okay, awesome. Well, Matt, this has been absolutely terrific. People have been staying with us throughout the whole time, so you can see that there's been a lot of interest, and appreciate you sharing with us. This will be on the website of the Catholic Academy, catholicacademy.org. And all this content and the webinars are eventually going to be under the umbrella of the Catholic Press Association as well. So Matt, thank you for joining us, and everyone out there, thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank you all. Thank you for having me.